tonight's homework is pages 57 and 58 in the homework journal. It talks about breaking up a garden into different fraction amounts. So the Brown family is trying to decide how to plan their garden for the vegetables they want to grow. It says use the GeoBoard model to design a garden that fits each description. Label every area to show where each vegetable will be planted. So the first one, the Browns could plant half tomatoes, 1/4 squash, and 1/4 lettuce. I'm going to start with the half as tomatoes. I'm going to do it in red because tomatoes are red. So I'm going to cut it in half. And so then this half would be tomatoes. Then I have 1/4 squash. So then this part is 1/4 because I could squeeze 4 of them in there in 4 different rows. So this will be my squash. I should have switched colors. And this 1/4 will be my lettuce. Or, number 2, they could plant 1/4 tomatoes, 1/4 squash, 1/4 lettuce, 1/8 peppers, and 1/8 cabbage. My first fourth will be my tomatoes. Then another fourth will be my squash. And then I have another fourth of lettuce. So notice this time my tomatoes amount got smaller, but my squash and my lettuce stayed the same. And because my tomatoes shrank, I can now add peppers. And I can add cabbage. Number 3, the Browns family might plant 1/8 tomatoes, 1/8 cabbage, 1/8 peppers. If they do, what fraction of their garden will be unplanted? So now we're really shrinking our tomatoes, and now we're going with 1/8 tomatoes, I'm going to have 1/8 cabbage, I'm going to have 1/8 peppers, and then if they do, what part will be unplanted? So I have another 1/8, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. And I kept counting it out in eighths because that's what I started with. That way my denominator was the same. So I also could have said that the whole garden is 8/8, and I've used 3/8 to garden, and 8/8 minus 3/8 is 5/8. So there's another variation on how you could have done that one. On the back, if the Browns plant 3/16 tomatoes, 1/4 cabbage, and 2/8 peppers, what fraction of their garden will be unplanted? I am going to start with the biggest fraction, which is 1/4, and I'm going to have 1/4 cabbage, it says 2/8 peppers, so there's 1/8, and there's 2/8. So 2/8 peppers is the same as 1/4, so the cabbage and the peppers will have the same amount. And then 3/16 tomatoes. Well, 16th was each little square. So 1, 2, 3, and all of those will be tomatoes. And then it says what fraction will be unplanted. Since I was using the 16ths, I'm going to keep counting the 16ths. So I have 1 16th, 2 16ths, 3 16ths, 4 16ths, and 5 16ths ungardened. And then number 2 on the back says create a plan for the garden that has room for 5 different vegetables. Label the vegetables in the garden and write an equation to represent the model. Yours can be very, very different from mine. Okay? I'm going to say that I have 1/2 of my garden is tomatoes. I'm going to have 1/4 of my garden be carrots, because I really like carrots too. And then I'm going to have 1/8 of my garden be pumpkins. And then I'm going to have 1/16 of my garden be peppers. And then I'm going to have 1 more 16th be squash. And I can give the squash to someone else because I don't really like squash. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different vegetables, and I used a bunch of different fractions. You don't have to do it that way. Yours can be different. But that is tonight's homework.